to start us off, could you give us your definition of what transhumanism is?
Transhumanism is it's a philosophy which different people have construed in different ways. But what it to me is about is looking at the purpose of humanity and the purpose of being human as partly being going beyond our current conception of humanity and growing into incredible new frontiers. So it's not really a contradiction to humanism. It's not like transhumanists want humans to get annihilated or don't like being humans. It's just like we want humanity to grow to mean more and more and more than what it means currently and what it has meant historically. And then this leads into specific possibilities like conquering death, enhancing your body, let yourself fly through the air, let your mind achieve superhuman intelligence, fuse with a computer, right? So there's a lot of potentials out there, but the philosophy goes beyond any of these particular technologies.
Now, most of our readers and viewers may know you from your work with SingularityNET, but how did you get in started with transhumanism? How did that become a something you were curious about?
I mean, the concepts of transhumanism, I suppose, were interesting and obvious to me since perhaps age 2 or 3, when I was watching science fiction programs on TV with my dad, like the original Star Trek, Kubrick's, Space Odyssey 2001. Like, I mean, these are very transhumanist in some ways. Right? I mean, 2001 is all about this cosmic transhuman intelligence. Star Trek was a little more ambivalent because they didn't really encounter many superhuman minds, but certainly they were about extending your abilities in different sorts of ways. So, and then I learned to read when I was 2. I started reading science fiction stories and books over the next few years, and all these transhumanist ideas have been fleshed out really thoroughly in the science fiction literature since the 1950s. Right then, in 1973 or so, I was maybe 7, 8 years old. I encountered a book that had actually been published in 1968 by the Princeton physicist Gerald Feinberg called the Prometheus Project. And he said, in his view as a scientist, within the next few decades, we were going to get, conquer death, create machines smarter than people, and be able to build nano machines that did whatever we want. And then we would need to decide what purpose we put all that toward, right? And whether this was to be charted democratically or was to be guided by a small elite. So already in the in the 50s, this was all laid out in science fiction. By the late 60s, it was being laid out by serious scientists at top universities. And I was reading all this when I was a little kid. I'm like, well, this seems a lot more important and interesting than what people are talking about all around me. And then when the web became a thing and email lists and so forth became a thing and BBSs and all that, right? I mean, then moving into the mid-90s, then suddenly various people around the world interested in this weird shit could all connect to each other, right? And that's really when the transhumanist movement started to gel, right? It was part of the power of the internet to connect together people interested in some weird little niche. And of course, what's happened since then is it's no longer a weird little niche, because so many technologies have advanced so far that you don't need that much imagination to see the potential of the expansion of humanity beyond its legacy restrictions anymore.
Now, when we're talking about transhumanism, because I'm a huge fan of cyberpunk, so when I think transhumanism, I think cyberware you put on your back, something you put in your eyes, on your hands. Is that what we're talking about, or is it more of a medicine bio?
That is one possible manifestation, and of course, transhumanist themes in science fiction go back well before William Gibson and Neil Stephenson and all this, right? So I mean, upgrading the human body in this way, you could view as sort of a transhumanism light version or something, really. Whereas then, like, uploading yourself into a virtual world where you become a massively transhuman entity that has 1,000 different bodies at once and may not even need a body and has 1,000,000,000 times human intelligence.
Right.
That's also part of the transhumanist story. And it's a fairly heterogeneous community, right? So some folks in the transhumanist world, they're more interested in, having perfectly sculpted abs, never getting wrinkles, keep their 20-year-old body forever, and don't die. Just keep learning, doing things, and having fun. Maybe learn a little quicker. Then don't forget so many things, right?
Right.
Whereas others are more interested in, like, let's build a superhuman AGI mind and fuse ourselves with it and understand the whole universe, right? And I mean, all these ideas are there for a long time in the transhumanist literature, both as fiction, as partially fleshed out science, and as philosophy, right? And there's not really a big contradiction among these various more or less radical possibilities, but different people will tend to focus on different aspects.
Now, one of the other companies that you founded is called Rejuve, which is I don't know if you want to call it a healthcare company, but it's mostly dealing with biological. It's
Yeah, Rejuve is oriented toward life extension and using AI to promote life extension, hopefully indefinite life extension, so nobody has to die if they don't want to.
well, that was going to be my question because how does artificial intelligence and AGI factor into transhumanism?
Well, in a lot of ways, but I mean, AI now, of course, is pervading all corners of science and technology. So, given that transhumanism is largely based on various advanced technologies having transformative impact, AI can be helpful in every one of these areas, right? So, I mean, in longevity biology, I mean, we have more data about different levels of the human body and different organisms than any human mind can understand, and biostatistics struggles, standard machine learning struggles. So the more advanced your AI gets, the better you can integrate together all the diverse biology data out there, and you can then use AI for hypothesis generation. And yeah, I gave a talk a few days ago at the Longevity Summit Dublin,
Right. I saw
and
that.
yeah, LSD, Longevity Summit Dublin. It's a great acronym, right? And everyone needs a little LSD. And I mean, so that this one of the things I showed off in the talk is some of our software using our OpenCog Hyperon neural symbolic
Hmm.
AI system, which we've rolled out on SingularityNET platform in an alpha form anyway, using this to create new hypotheses about longevity. So create new hypotheses about why some organisms live a lot longer than others, create new hypotheses about, for example, why obesity shortens lifespan. So I think AI is super valuable there. Now, if you look at nanotech, something totally different, I mean, how do we know how to build stuff at the molecular scale? AI is way better at designing stuff at the nanoscale or the femtoscale beyond that, right? Than humans are. Like we have a lot of practical know-how about how to hammer and nail stuff together at the scale where we intuitively understand the physics,
Right.
but we don't have a good intuition for nanoscale or femtoscale physics, right? And AI can deal with that just as well as the scale that we're at now, right? So I mean, pretty much look at brain computer interfacing. Well, how do you decode the signals coming out of the brain?
Hmm.
Again, AI can be very helpful for decoding the basically coding language that different parts of the brain use to describe things. So it becomes a very long story, just like if you ask how do we use AI to optimize retail or manufacturing or something, right? Like there's many different applications that can be enhanced by AI. And then, of course, once you get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, you could have the AI coordinating all these different particular AI applications.
Now, transhumanism does definitely has its critics. In researching this topic for our conversation, I've seen quite a few that it's only going to benefit the rich. It's playing God. It's playing with fire. What do you think about those criticisms?
Um, I think the idea that advanced technologies will only benefit the rich, it's a half truth, and it's something that we should certainly push against. I mean, these little mobile supercomputers we all carry around have not only benefited the rich, right? Like you go to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where we have 50 software developers working for SingularityNET, and every one of the kids doing coding for us there has a smartphone. And even if you go to a rural village in sub-Saharan Africa, everyone's got feature phones, and they use them to keep touch with their family. They also use them to check in the city to see what price they should be selling different agricultural commodities for, right? So not all advanced technologies benefit solely the rich. Actually, I mean, that's not how it works. On the other hand, you have people in sub-Saharan Africa dying of curable diseases because they don't have antibiotics, right? So, I mean, that's a technology that's, if not only the rich, it's differentially benefiting like the global middle class and not the global poor anyway. So you do have that also. So I think that's something that we can actively combat and push against, right? Like it's not inevitable that AI benefits only the elites or other transhumanist technologies benefit only the elites. It's not inevitable that it's rolled out in an egalitarian way either, right? So like suppose there's a pill that will let you roll back to your healthy 20-year-old body. I mean, pretty much the way pharmaceuticals seem to work. Once you know what the pill is, some factory in India or somewhere can mass manufacture it quite cheaply. But then there's a distribution problem, right? Because we're not even getting like amoxicillin everywhere. So I mean, there's real issues there. I mean, in theory, the blockchain and cryptocurrency worlds can be helpful in combating those issues by creating a parallel economic system that's not tied down by the legacy economic systems. In practice, that's a challenge because many governments outlaw crypto. Then, right? So,
Right.
and crypto markets themselves become dominated by token whales, which is their own emergent elite. So that's an important thing to worry about and work against, but yet it's not obvious transhumanist technologies make this phenomenon any worse than it is now. Like, I mean, we have massive global wealth and income inequality even without transhumanist technologies, and there's great potential to fix these problems. Like, what if you could send drones to every single hut out in every rural village and every suburban house? The drone airdrops a molecular assembler that can then 3D print whatever you ask it to in any language, right? Maybe some filters so it's not 3D printing autonomous machine guns or something. But then, I mean, you can imagine a technology like that that's not even that far out by transhumanist standards, right? But you can imagine a technology like that, which very rapidly does amazing good all around the world. And even without necessarily wiping out inequality, because some rich guy might have a 3D printer that can print him a planet, and the average people can just print themselves, food, shelter, clothing, video games, and motorcycles and something. So I think there's a lot to think and worry about there. But on the other hand, it seems the direction we're going in anyway. So I mean, I think to a certain extent, 30 years ago, it already wasn't that interesting to me to debate whether we should develop advanced technologies or not, because just we were, right. It's sort of like debating, should we have created agriculture and civilization, or should we be hunter gatherers? And
Mhm.
I mean, hunter gatherers seem mostly like happy people, right? I mean, you could argue that either way. Although now there's 8 billion people, that exceeds the carrying capacity of the Earth for hunter gatherers, then you're gonna have to become a deep ecologist and wipe out most of them. But I mean,
But let's
yeah,
let's hope we don't
yeah,
do that.
yeah. So, but I mean, by now, 2024, you can debate whether we should be developing advanced technologies. But even if you feel like we shouldn't be, humanity is doing it anyway, right? So the more practical question is like, how can we divert them for the common good? And in terms of transhumanism, just like with AI, for better and worse, it's a slippery slope, right? Like I don't think attempts to ban AI are going to help whatsoever, because AI is developing too much useful value to too many people, too many businesses, too many people in their lives, right?
Right.
There's not that much precedent for a free society banning things that are useful to everyone. And I mean, I think in the end, the same will be true of transhuman oriented technologies. Like, suppose we created a hat, say, I'm not saying this one is upgraded to that level yet, but suppose we created a hat that let you remember things better, learn twice as fast, and instead of your short-term memory capacity being 7 or 9, it's 50, right?
Right.
Now, suppose you could do that just through like magnetic and electrical waves, light going through your skull without drilling holes or something, right? I mean, then so you don't need to force people to wear that. Whoever wears it will do better at their job. They'll pick up more girls or boys or whatever their taste may be. They'll do better on exams, right?
Right.
So it will catch on. You can try to outlaw it, but then if some other country didn't outlaw it, all their citizens are going to be smarter than yours, right? So, I mean, I think we're talking about getting to a wild and far off place
Mhm.
through incremental rollout of actually useful stuff that helps people, right? So I think that's just going to happen, and how to direct and guide it is very important. In a way, complicated. In a way, very simple. Like, compassion is a decent guiding principle. Like, if you're using this to help people and with a spirit of kindness, that's the most important thing. That's not always what happens now on the planet, but I would say how to how to guide this in a good direction is not such a mystery, really. It's more the age-old battle between compassion and kindness versus selfishness, which is the issue.
Right. Now, with any technology, there's a downside. So, are there any limitations, any prohibitions we should put on this type of research? Because you might come up with something that, uh,
I mean, we can't say there are no limitations that should be put on research. I mean, I don't want every irate 12-year-old to have access to as much plutonium as they want and brew up. Then every school shooter will become a school nuker or a city nuker or something, right? So I mean, clearly, there is a line beyond which, as a society that cares about its members not all being killed, I mean, there's some research that you want to slow down a lot, or not permit, right? And I mean, we pretty much already have laws for things like that, though. Like, I mean, it is already illegal to brew up deadly weapons in your house and so forth.
right.
I think when you're looking at foundational technology, like say AI or brain computer interfacing, which is rapidly changing, and where there's so much obvious potential for good. I mean, I think that tightly controlling that is not really going to be workable in a free society. China is trying, right? But that's because they're not a free society in the Western sense, so they can try harder to guide and control everything. How well they will succeed remains to be determined, though. So yeah, I mean, there's some level where that's just like, do you want to ban stuff on the internet? I mean, pretty much I don't. Of course, like if someone's sending around toddler snuff films, like you don't want that, right? So I mean, but the fact that there's some level where you do need regulation, there's a long way from that to like this insane bullshit they're trying in California now to outlaw open source AI models because
Yeah.
someone might
Oh, that.
hack them to make them do something bad. Like there's a big gap between the level of regulation that's needed for obvious public safety and things that people are trying to do now, which have really no foundation in ethics or reason.
How much of that do you think is based on just ignorance of the topic? I mean, and saying something's ignorant, some ignorant of a topic is not an insult. A lot of people are ignorant of a lot of things that are.
I think what happens in politics is mostly that people with good knowledge and malevolent or selfish intent exploit the ignorance of the topic of a large number of other people. So not everyone there is ignorant. Like there are some people who know very clearly what's going on,
Right.
and then they manipulate the ignorance of everyone else, and that's modern democracy, right? So, and it's manifesting itself now in the regulation of AI technology because AI is becoming a big time thing.
Right. On a happier note, are there any technologies, anything currently available that you're excited about in transhumanism and in this space?
I mean, I'm excited about a lot of things, but I mean, I would say we're making steady progress towards transhumanist goals, but I can't think of any huge, big technology you can like order online or download that isn't widely known about. I would say in the domain of longevity medicine, if you look at the array of therapies that now can work to prolong your health span, we are now at the point where people can fairly reliably decrease their biological age, like make their body younger biologically than it was the year before.
Right.
But it's not exactly a magic bullet. It's more like you got to do blood tests, you got to measure the state of your body, then you can try a variety of supplements and prescription therapies, and then you can see what impact they're having on your body through the systematic testing, and you can find a combination of therapeutics that will work for you and make you feel younger and appear younger according to biomarkers of aging, right? So I mean that's it's cool. It's not as good as like just take this pill and you'll be younger, but it's real progress. Like 10 years ago, I mean, we didn't have all these like nicotinamide supplements. We didn't have metformin. We didn't have this whole array of life extension substances that are documented to work well in many particular cases, right? So, I know. Speaking of weird stuff that isn't so commonly known, though, there's these guys I know in Poland who have a helmet that you put on that shines infrared light through your head that puts you in a blissful, enlightened state where you can learn faster and think more clearly. And that's just light. It's not magnetism or electricity, right? So that's quite interesting. There's research papers on it. It's not published on the market yet, but there is a lot of funky sort of marginal technology like that, which doesn't get a lot of attention. Like the amount of money that goes into like weight loss bands that you can wear by zapping your fat with electricity is much higher than these things that actually help you expand your mind, right? So, but that does exist, and I mean, on the AI side, which is where most of my own work is going, recently the big exciting breakthroughs have been led by big tech companies, and then open source has sort of followed. And what I'm working toward there, as I've said many times, is we need to turn that dynamic around during the next couple of years, and we need to make it so the most cool, exciting, smartest system on the world is not GPT-6,
Right.
but something that comes out of the open and decentralized ecosystem, right? And let the big techs be playing catch up, and that's important for increasing the odds of a more ethical and broadly helpful transition to a transhuman future.